at 12:02 p.m. July 3rd, OregonServes Public Policy and Education Committee. On the agenda today, we're going to hear some AmeriCorps legislative updates from Carrie. Cassie Rose, the executive director of the community volunteer work, is going to provide some testimony to us regarding the AmeriCorps senior programs, and then review some brief committee business and future meeting dates and action items. Before we move forward, Kelly, do we have any public comments?
We do not have any public comment.
All right, and we do not have quorum, so we're not going to do minutes, and we don't have minutes to approve anyway. So moving right along, Carrie, AmeriCorps and legislative updates.
Thank you. I also want to share real quick, Sarah, for at 12:35, if there's any updates on the letter draft or anything like that, that's where I figured that we'd be able to discuss that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just get started on the federal and state activities. As far as what's going on federally, I mean, there's obviously a lot to share. It's kind of a moving, ongoing thing. As you're aware, I believe it was June 5th, the preliminary injunction was granted by the District Court of Maryland judge that is overseeing the multi-state lawsuit. Part of that PI was to request or require AmeriCorps, the federal agency, to return the grants and member status and programs to status quo, meaning that they can return to program activities, members could be returned to service and whatnot. Within the multi-state lawsuit, there was also a couple of other items in addition to the mass demobilization of NCCC and then the 2024 AmeriCorps state grant terminations. There were items addressing the reductions in force, the RIF. Obviously that's part of like the whole kind of like situation that's going on. And then having this ripple effect of the greatly diminished capacity of AmeriCorps, then, that kind of domino effect of then they don't have staff to like review grants and do all these other things that, they need to do for us all to have consistent and ongoing program operations and grant management operations. So that's part of the lawsuit. However, the judge determined that is really outside of their purview of this group to argue on behalf of federal employees. We're not federal employees, there is actually an AFL-CIO federal lawsuit anyhow, so that will all be dealt with through that. But we continue to submit information around the various impacts and consequences of the federal actions. One of the things that was a little wonky going on there is that it then took quite a while for AmeriCorps to actually issue guidance on how to reinstate and return things to status quo. Well, we would have been happy to immediately do that ourselves. The policies and processes and online grant management systems are AmeriCorps', and it's within those systems that those actions need to occur. And so we sort of needed to wait for them to do something. And obviously, as I just mentioned, they have staffing capacity issues. So they had to, look into that. So it was about 2 or 3 weeks before we did receive guidance, but we did receive that last week and issued that out. Essentially, AmeriCorps itself is going to just mass reinstate members in the system. They're going to delete the any previous exit dates that were related or came after the grant terminations, and then sort of, I guess, turn things back on so that in the event, so that then it's would be put back out to the programs themselves to go in and put the real date. If they are like, well, okay, now it's active, I can go in and say like this was their real date, or great, they're reinstated, they are coming back to serve, and so basically, yeah, the guidance is saying that that is presumably would mean that they could again to incur program costs and things like that. If you'll remember in the grant termination language, it was only acceptable closeout costs is sort of what it looked like they were saying. So obviously that's been reversed. And members can go back to earning their education awards. We should be able to issue no cost extensions to programs for them to be, which is a typical process for them to be able to extend program times so that, or grant expenditure periods so that they can access those funds if they're like, hey, this program was supposed to, the grant period and member period was supposed to end in August, but we're reinstating them and they need till October to finish up the hours that they want to state so they can have a larger percentage of their ed award. So in that event, we'd be able to extend that time and whatnot. We've issued that. I think what I would say about what's going on, in totality with that situation before I share some other updates is that there, in many cases in our state and other states, members had to find jobs or they went home or they did this and that. This was this was a couple of months period between from, what was it, April 24th to June 5th. And so if the programs, did exit or if members did exit, or in some cases, wasn't prevalent in our portfolio, but, host organizations found paying jobs within there or internships or other ways to engage them. But they're employed. And so, that they're not around or available anymore, or quite frankly, they don't have trust that the, rug will be pulled out from under them again. Valid, right? Daniel's here, so we have quorum now. And so basically, you're seeing that there's not a lot of members to actually come back in many cases for this program year. For us, we have 3 programs that are going to have members serving. It's just maybe around like 17 members, I think, altogether. I am doing some advocacy around, just again, kind of putting out there the risk that programs see around allowable costs and so forth, and seeing what kind of mitigation the state might be able to promise via either like our agency funds, state funds, or whatnot. So I'm doing that and collecting that data. But it's not a large cohort that's coming back. But really excited that some are coming back and that they're going to earn, that education award and experience that they wanted to continue with and whatnot. So that's sort of where that stands right now.
Thank you, Carrie. So for the members who were unable or unwilling to return, they cannot get the education award or
they get the prorated
award.
One.
Okay. So they
get that prorated award. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Great.
essentially what's happening is, so if a member was, let's say, exited in a positive CPC, compelling personal circumstance of the grants being terminated, so that won't be held against them for any future terms if they wanted, enrollments if they wanted. But they were supposed to, so they haven't been serving this whole time, and then their term was supposed to end July 1st. Then AmeriCorps saying you can credit them for the hours that they should have been allowed to earn from April 24th to July 1st. And
Okay.
so they're allowing that to happen. In some cases, that may not be that was or it's okay. I'm not sure that it's always going to be a full award that then they're getting credit for, but it's there's always like all these nuances and technicalities, but that's essentially what's happening is they're getting credit for the hours that they weren't allowed to serve during that time. So it should be more than what it would have been from April 24th.
Okay, great.
Right.
Daniel,
I feel like that's not the right date, but
it
it's
was
sometime at the end of April.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the status of that.
Okay, Daniel or Craig, did you have any questions before we move on?
No, I do not.
No questions.
So the other thing I wanted to share, and this is going to lead into why Cassie is joining, and then the greater context is this all really ties into when we think about like what the future of service and the future of other funding sources, and all these things that I'm like keep me up at night, but or that we'll want to talk about. But the other thing that's going on is that so there is the FY25 funds that were congressionally approved in March, right, during the continuing resolution. So the competitive application process results came out. We're probably going to be funding some of our competitive through formula and whatnot. I think that's still all being sorted out and notations, stuff like that. So I won't get into that. But for a lot of grants, competitive grant results, and Vista and seniors programs are getting notices that say this is awarded pending release of FY25 appropriations. This is also happening to our commission investment fund grant. We have 2 operating grants for the commission, one commission support grant, which we've got, it's clear, great. But the other one is the KIF. We don't have that yet for FY25. We're kind of living right now off of the no cost extension I was able to get on the 2024 ones.
Just for the
but
record, Carrie,
those-
can you clarify what KIF stands for?
Commission investment fund.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that should have been, awarded by now, and then we would be charging to that July 1st, because that's expenditure period. So the issue is that that and others got that condition, and of course the question is like, well, that's interesting considering those funds have been appropriated. What's happening? And so what's happening is that the OMB is withholding those funds and not allowing AmeriCorps to issue them. The great concern there would be that this is an attempt at impoundment, which is sort of like the little bit of that, not loophole, but it's kind of like a workaround to override congressional authority. And so the expectation is that now there's great concern that that's the way that the 25 funds are now going to be taken, because they're not in the rescission package, but this would be another way to recapture them. And so we're watching that, concerned about it. There's a lot of discussion happening around it. There's a lot of advocacy happening around, contacting people to say, try to, fix this and whatnot. And seniors programs in Oregon, if they do not receive their funds soon, all but one program will shut down in Oregon. Nationwide, this is about 7,000 senior volunteers, AmeriCorps senior volunteers, 36 states, 132 programs in 36 states. These are really members of vulnerable populations in our community. These are senior volunteers that are maintaining their independence and, their mental and social health through this support and this involvement in transportation, meals provided, a stipend, health insurance, providing services to other seniors who need those, that assistance to maintain their independence, like get to the doctor, get groceries or whatnot. They also provide services to veterans, and they very frequently are the classroom helpers in classrooms for children with disabilities. And so pretty big deal. This is Multnomah County, Clackamas County, Morrow, Klamath, Lane. Well, Lane is the only one that would not be impacted. They got a continuation, and several other counties. And so that is why you see that Cassie is invited here to tell more. I asked her if she wanted to come. She had reached out to me. While we don't administer those grants, I wanted you all to be aware of what's going on. I have shared this with others so that can run up the governor's office. The DOJ knows everyone else. While we don't administer those grants, how services, faring in the rest of the state is under our purview as a state commission and commission board. We know that we include them in our vision of service and our state service plan and whatnot. And I think that it's just, I thought it was good for her to let you all know, because when she contacted me, it was right before we were having last week's meeting that we had to reschedule. But I asked her if she could. She's been on a boat for vacation and she's coming back into town today, I think, and then call again. So we love the commitment. But I think it's just really good to hear and know what's going on with various elements of service, because at some point, when we talk about where are we going to get back into that conversation about state core programs and about state funding for service programs. This is another branch where we're seeing that vulnerability for funding, stability. We're seeing like a potential need for other ideas as well. And so I just thought it was a good idea, to ask her to come to this meeting. I'm also collecting data and research from all the programs to be able to share and, run up to leadership. But that's a little bit about why. And I told her like our limitations as far as asks and some of the things that we can do. But as a public body, in that situation, but I wanted to provide her voice to share what's going on or with these types of, these other AmeriCorps programs in the state. So I'll move on because of time, but I did just want to give that kind of idea. As far as the, maybe I can come back to it after 12:35, but as far as the state issues going on, so session ended. Weird session, a lot of bills, some things I thought would go, some didn't. I did put in the Basecamp folder for you all, sort of our internal like spreadsheet on what went forward and what didn't. Something I wanted to share and highlight, that two things I wanted to share that went forward were some things that I think are really good for us to think about future like service partners and entry points for collaboration with our youth mental health core is that OHA was one of the entities that was successful. We weren't, but that was successful with some support and scholarships for youth and mental behavioral health students. And I think that that's going to be a great collaboration for us and also potentially maybe some ideas for legislative concepts. I also want to note that National Guard got their hiring priority points in session, approved in session. And I think, as we have wanted that for national service credit members, that's a good point too, I think, for us to discuss further, maybe do some outreach, maybe hear from them kind of like how'd that process go for you, and also see, is there any potential for like being included further in that movement. As you know, we've submitted a legislative concept for that and it didn't move forward, but maybe this is where that door has opened. And then just really quickly, I'll close with wanting to show just a general idea, and I'll give other updates during the 12:35 because I do have some tidbits of other things. But
Before you
I'll
move on, Carrie,
Yeah.
Daniel, I see your hand raised.
Oh,
Go
is it raised? Oh, sorry
Oh,
about that. I saw you clapping or something, and I'd like didn't
the
see it.
only thing that I was gonna add was as you're mentioning some ideas, I'm thinking we don't need to reinvent the wheel. You have really close connections. I think is it Colorado, the executive director of the AmeriCorps body in Colorado was successful in merging the National Guard with AmeriCorps. And so at a time where we might need to consolidate or merge with other programs, National Guard seems to be getting support. So how can we align our priorities to like continue serving like our respective missions? But we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's someone that has had success doing this type of thing. So I think those ideas are great, Carrie, because we can also lean on our partners to see how they did it successfully. And it sounded really cool. Is it Colorado? I think I saw you had
Probably, and I'm connected to them for all these other initiatives with service, and so I could pull John in for a meeting to like
Yeah, I
get
think it was,
insights.
they did, it was
And
like
also
you serve,
Casey from Ask, the
yes,
public
yes,
policy
yes,
guy,
yes.
reached out and wanted to know what we were thinking about, like starting next sessions and any bills that haven't gone through, if we're like planning on following up. And so I was going to invite him to a future.
Yeah, because I think the rundown really quickly was that like someone was able to serve through the National Guard and they counted it as a year of AmeriCorps service and they got the benefits all the above through like a wilderness program that they had. I'm thinking it was Colorado, but this is really good ideas on when we need to reimagine what service looks like, we can merge our priorities together so that we're all meeting our missions. And at the end of the day, we're all still serving just in a reimagined way. But I just remember making that connection at the leadership convening. And so I think that's a great idea when we can lean on our partners to not have to imagine this new things from scratch, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because that is something, yeah, Casey and I have been emailing about a little bit. And then on the National Public Policy Committee a couple of weeks ago, he brought up that he wanted to do kind of an additional meeting just around, really, I think, kind of strengthening legislative advocacy in the future, legislative, proposals in the future with, kind of taking advantage and leaning on some of these states that have had some successes, similar to how when we did a lot of outreach and sharing our resources when we became, just the sixth state for the state tax exemption on the Ed Award. And so I think, yeah, he definitely wanted to know what our thoughts were and what we were going to try to go for. So, yeah, I think we're all definitely have the same idea. Like, let's not reinvent the wheel and, lean on these strengths and these things that have already been done. So for sure, expect that, I want to have Casey at the next meeting or one of our next meetings, or maybe even call a special one with him, but, like a training one or something. And then I can talk to John about the other thing. And I'll just quickly share that, and I've got this in the is Cassie here yet?
Doesn't look like she's in the meeting actively.
Okay. I sent her the agenda, time, and everything. So yes, as far as I know, she was still planning on coming.
Kelly, is she in the waiting room?
Nope, nobody in the waiting room yet.
Let me pause really quick and
While you're doing
I
that,
was gonna ask Kelly if you could actually reach out to her first.
Mm.
But I don't know that you have her contact info actually.
I don't, if you want to send it to me, I'm happy to.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that really quick.
Carrie, you mentioned that you dropped in a spreadsheet of what bills passed and what didn't. Is
Yeah,
that
in
the
the
public
meeting
policy?
folder on base.
Oh, in the meeting
Yeah.
folder. Okay, great. Thank you.
So she accepted the invite actually and has the agenda. So yeah, she has all that, but real quick. Let me, if you don't mind like texting her or something, Kelly, just to make sure I'm sending you her cell and Teams.
No problem.
I would love for things to open on my other screen. So on share while I'm trying to get my act together. Okay, sorry, that's just gone through for you. Okay, so I just to kind of ground us in where we're even at with legislative concept development, this hasn't been hasn't officially come out yet because session just ended like a day or two ago and everybody's been very busy. They'd kill me if I tried to get them to start thinking already on next one, but I'm thinking about it already because there's some deadlines and some timing, that's coming up, and I know we have a lot to talk about with this. But essentially, when you have session in Oregon, every other one is a long session. The short one is a technical session. So 2026 is like technical fixes and other things like that. And you're not really going for like new items, new initiatives, new positions or anything. That would happen during 2027, the long session. And believe it or not, we already have some deadlines coming up by the end of this year. So this kind of gives you an idea how this all kind of comes together. When you see, so I put this together for 2025, and what I think generally is going to be the 2027 timeline is that if you look at 2025, you'll see that like internally, we were already like really digging into concepts and ideas August to October 2023. We started sending those, having Julia, others look at them internally, our teams look at them for feedback, started identifying partners and things like that, and then submitted it to the legislative analyst at HAC during that around October or so. A lot of back and forth, and I think it was around like December and January that they started getting weighed in on by the HAC Commission, and that to be able to actually move forward to the Department of Admin Services, DAS, and the governor's office in January of 2024. Then there's a bunch of blah, 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 blah back and forth that happens, January, April or so. But it's essentially the end of April when that final draft version had to go into DAS. And then that starts being reviewed by legislative council. There's all kinds of things happening, kind of back and forth. So a lot of partner conversations are also happening. And then the final version was November 2024 for that session that then begins in January. So it sounds bonkers, I know, to be like, what do you mean you already have to start talking about this for 2027? But it is true. So we would expect that it would be over the next few months and leading up to essentially the end of the year that we would want to have drafts finalized.
Carrie, is there in base camp somewhere the previous LCs that we've submitted that died? I'm wondering if we could
I'll review that. If I think it's in some past meeting material folders, but I've been going back and looking at things, and I was thinking I wanted to kind of pull everything together anyways, because I just sent off all my past LCs that had to do with disaster to Department of Emergency Management. They're gonna try to utilize some of my work for some that they're gonna consider, and we're probably gonna have some partnered ones as well. So I was thinking good idea to kind of pull all those together again anyhow. So I'll go ahead and bump that up my list and do that. And
That'll
put it
sort of
in
go back
a
to
more
Daniel's point
obvious
that,
folder, for us
right.
to note. I also I'll see what I can grab from the bills from the other states that Casey has let us know about too. And kind of put it in
Yeah,
a
to
real
go back to Daniel's
place
point,
somewhere.
if there are previous LCs that we submitted that died that are still in line with our priorities right now, there's no point in completely redoing them rather than we can just update.
Yeah, and we've got, just as a review, I mean, we've done, we did the state tax credit. We've got education, matching the education award. We've got in-state tuition for a year of service, because just moving to Oregon and serving in Oregon for a year does not actually qualify you for in-state college. So we had put that tuition, we had put that forward. We've put forward state core multiple positions for volunteer services, disaster services, and others. A lot of capacity, commission capacity ones. And then, those are kind of like our standards, but there's also some that are I think kind of emerging out of like current needs that are a little different that, we will want to talk about too, that we're seeing like, oh, that's a really great idea that state did. And so, yeah, we've got a few. I wish the pile of how many we have that are unfunded is not as big for the reason that they're unfunded, but we're very productive. We do have a lot of bills.
Daniel or Craig, you have any questions, comments?
The only question I have is, Carrie, where does this information live, right? I think, like, where do we keep a running list of legislative concepts that we have, like, these have passed, but these have made it into a committee but didn't make it all the way? Like, is there a tracker of some sorts, and like, does that live anywhere? Is that something we can create? And then who's a point person to like maintain that? But at some point, right, we're all going to graduate from this committee, but the work is still going to continue. So just historical wise, it would be a good idea to
No,
have
this is
something
Hotel California. You're not gonna
have
live
something
for it.
that outlives us.
Yeah, Heck might have something.
So the tracker that you see in the folders, that is kind of the internal tracking document, and that is something that Clay Martin does as a special project every session, and it tracks all the bills that are related to anything OE before that even happens. So I am the legislative analyst for anything having to do with us, and then Todd is WTB, Doug, Oregon Youth Works and stuff. And so we do all the analysis, We're also the people that are on the, as part of the leadership team at OE that create the legislative concepts. So then I would be the representative that would pull anything forward that the commission has approved. And so I, in my folders, I have all of our drafts. In those spreadsheets every year that Clay creates, you would see like some results. The problem is that I have quite a few of these that never made it out of the heck. They got shot down before that, or the hack, as in last year, they made it approved by the hack. It got sent to DAS and governor's office, and then it was not included in the GRB, the governor's recommended budget. And that is the benchmark. That is where we no longer can push it. Because
So maybe
then we're appointed by we're serving at the pleasure of the governor. So we can't go around her not including it in the budget. And that is why you then have to, you would need a legislative sponsor for it, that whole deal. And so a lot of our bills wouldn't be represented on that spreadsheet because it just never made it that far. But we certainly could have like just a real easy like cheat sheet that says like that where they all, what was the status historically over time or something.
And at what position or what place the bill died or didn't go forward. I just want to check in really quick. Carrie, were you able to Kelly, were you able to get in touch with Cassie?
I texted and called and have not heard any response yet.
I wonder what happened there.
Did you say she was traveling, like coming back?
Yeah, but she was, and she thought she was gonna have service at this point, and and she accepted. So maybe something just came up. I don't personally have any sort of notices that oh wait, I did just get a voicemail. but that's not her.
Okay.
So, okay, well, I can just keep going.
Yeah, I did. I was gonna wait for Cassie. You might not have the answer to this, Carrie, but I'm curious what the justification, well, two questions. The second one is contingent on how you answer the first one. Were the AmeriCorps senior programs or the senior service programs explicitly called out in the funding impoundment? And if so, what was the justification given for impounding those funds?
So, is it okay if I stop sharing this, by the way? Impoundment is speculation. There's no like formal communication saying anything about impoundment.
Okay.
But and it's a greater federal conversation around all other federal funds and source, and sorry, what was the rest of the question?
Well, you sort of answered it, what the justification was for impoundment, because I was just
Oh,
looking it up and it looks like there has to be like a reason.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, okay,
there's
that
no
tracks.
reason. Yeah, I guess I did kind of, yeah, just across the board with these FY25 grants, this disclaimer, this condition is coming out that says, pending, this has been approved pending release of these funds. And then AmeriCorps acting program officer had identified at least with some of them, and so we know it's for the rest, that they are being withheld by they don't have the internal approval from OMB yet. So
Okay.
there is a known opinion on these funds from the political appointee to OMB.
Okay.
This federal administration's appointee to OMB. So the speculation is, not wanting to give those funds. And then when someone does something like this, it is called impoundment, but there's been no like formal statement saying we're impounding these funds or having, any intentions with this or that.
Okay.
We do know that generally, AmeriCorps has also told those programs that they can ask for no cost extension through September if they have any funds left to the current grants to be able to still use them, but they are not going to approve pre-award costs. That's problematic if one, you already expended your funds, and two, you can't you can't incur costs for recruitment and orientation and things like that till you get the fund.
Okay. How do we want to move forward with Cassie in this meeting?
I can just continue to give my updates, and if she joins, she can give us an update. I've got I did give a general update, and we can just tell her maybe if she wanted to come back on July 11th, there's an opportunity there. And as I stated, I'm collecting data to educate on what's going on, and I from all the programs, so I can share that with the committee. I also would point the committee members as private citizens who are informed by serving on the commission, that in your private citizen time, you may want to look on some social media channels and LinkedIn for some messaging around supporting and letting congresspersons know around these issues, that there are some campaigns that are circulating, which is another way to support and raise awareness about the things that are happening with the funds.
Does Ask have any materials about that we're aware of? Okay, great. Yeah, I think that plan works then, if you just want to keep giving updates, and if Cassie's able to join right now for a few minutes, great. Otherwise, we will find another time to connect with her.
Okay. Oh, look at that. It's exactly 12:35.
Perfect.
What good timing we have. Let me check in on the agenda really quick, please.
So we're sort of adjusting the invited testimony that's currently scheduled for 12:20 and instead moving the 12:35 line item committee business up.
Let me see. So yeah, this is going to be a mishmash. I wanted to just bring attention to a few things. Okay, so well, Okay, here's a plug. So board member nominations are due, the applications are due July 7th. If you know anybody, you've seen my posts and so forth, somebody that you think would be a good fit, please pass that info along. Ask them to apply so I can get connected with them. Another update I wanted to share is that you'll recall that Congresswoman Dexter was going to visit a few programs, did a lot of work to connect her and working with her staff to visit some programs in Northeast Portland. She ended up having an illness and had to cancel, and then went to El Salvador. And so that got canceled, but her staffers have reached out to me again, and they would like to still visit. So I'm working on coordinating that. So that'll be visiting some programs again, probably, hopefully during August recess and so forth. But I think any outreach we can do during August recess to have legislators visit, maybe do an educational visit. I'm wondering what you think about, because of the fact that all these delays with funding are going to mean that program years are going to start much later. So they'd normally be bringing, like, this is our programs I'm talking about now, not all the other branches, but so they normally would be bringing members in like late July, doing recruitment around that time, and hiring around that time, and having orientations August. And so, and with the late award process that's happening right now, a lot of members might not even be on till September, where it's August recess. And so, would it be that we might want to think about doing like just a virtual, like online, like education visit or whatnot, asking just for a visit, with program staff themselves, and alumni. It's not going to be go and watch someone do something, but is there another opportunity we might want to take there? So that's something to consider. I'll come back to that, but the other thing I wanted to mention is that a new cohort for, so these are just all things that are coming up. A new cohort for the Ask National Advocacy Academy is starting August 1st. And I was wondering, did anybody finish theirs that on this call that was me neither. But we have 3 slots, and we're not going to lose access to our slot if you're one of the people that are enrolled. And also, I think a bunch of us, including I think even Sierra and Dan, didn't you join as personal members so that I don't think you were even using the commission slot for the cohort?
I
Or
don't.
something? Anywho, so we as a commission, we can put 3 more people forward to take those classes or that online course.
The 3 of us here, though, Craig, Daniel, and I
The whole
are
commission.
all okay.
I'm pretty sure you and Daniel are already registered, though.
Okay.
And so I think you still have access
Right.
to finish.
Is Craig, are you registered for that academy?
I don't think Craig, were you even on the commission yet when this came up? It's an online like advocacy academy, which is like training series that, because we're a member of States for Service as a commission, which is Ask, like this other thing of Ask, we get like 3 slots for people to take the online training.
Yeah, I feel completely ignorant of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I
so
feel like this
I'm not sure.
happened before you joined the commission. Would you want to check it out though? Take one of the slots? I could put your name
Hypothetically, yeah, where can I find more information?
somewhere in my files.
Okay.
Oh, we lost Daniel, but he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will do that. And it's just like several hours of just sort of like, a primer 101 for like education visits and or like advocacy and so forth, and which we get to do on our own time. So yeah, it was just kind of a helpful resource that they put together, because there are these various opportunities where we do engage with public officials or whatnot, obviously, like in doing things like site visits and or when commission members join us like in DC for different things. So
yeah, it's a combination of like ethical policies and procedures as well as best practices. And then
you can make up a little badge for your LinkedIn.
that's true.
I'm such a badge collector.
And then on
the
the July 11th meeting, we can offer the other 2 spots.
Yeah, okay. And so then that's something I wanted to just cover with the July 11th meeting too. is that I wanted to mention to you all, and I think these particular materials will go out Sunday, Monday. Today will just be the agenda minutes for the 11th, but so with the formation of the membership and commission development committee, I am working with them on a lot of the, like, you know, kind of like reviewing all these different drafts that have been in development forever for various processes around commission operations. So things like, you know, commission member, so not operations from staff, like this commission board operations. So like commission member satisfaction survey, training needs, the DEIA assessment for commission operations, which does include the whole entity, but things like updating member positions, updating bylaws, creating some new member positions. As you know, I had some ideas for relieving the burden of frequently asked communities to serve on boards and commissions by instead seeking to develop ex officio positions where we would invite other governor appointed boards and commission reps that serve those communities as a way to just sort of foster like more alignment, collaboration and things like that. So just different, things like that. And one of the things that I asked that we could prioritize is something that I'm not sure exactly what to call it right now, but it's sort of like our policy analysis.
Mhm.
And the reason, so there are things that the commission board has always said, don't come to us for this. If this is like, some of these operational things are getting in the weeds, we don't need to be part of it. But there's definitely things that should come to you all that we should want your support and guidance and accountability for. And so when that happens and staff or whoever has, or a committee or whoever has a policy, not public policy, but has a policy that they want commission support behind, there is no process currently to say, hey, we want to institute this thing. It is going to have an impact on our grantees or this community or this and that. We have reached out. We have asked them for input. We have done this. We have done a DEIA analysis. Here's the final version. Here's our homework, or our work. We're showing our work. What do you all think? And then you all having some sort of tool that helps you run through that discussion and process and approval. And we really don't have a documented, transparent process for that. So I have a while back, but drafted a few things to kind of help define that and make that work. And so I asked membership and development committee to actually look at it more because it's a little bit less of like a public policy thing, but it's an internal workings thing. So I think it was actually today was their deadline for feedback on that. And then we're going to bring a draft forward the July 11th meeting and just say, it doesn't have to be approved then, but we want to get feedback on it so that it could be approved at least in the September meeting. And so I wanted to give you a heads up because I didn't want it to be like, why would she bring up something around policy, not to this group? But I wanted to establish a distinction and also just give you some reasoning behind it, because I think it also, I really am wondering how we might also utilize something similar like in the future for like invited public comment again, or just sort of like sending out, it's almost like you have how you have the Federal Register that you can do public comments on, like we don't really have something like that, but I'm trying to create something similar to that because I want to expand accessibility for feedback. That's not just that somebody has to sign up and come and say something. And so I think we have some additional processes that expand people's access to looking it over and being like, this is what I think and whatnot, from the public, that's a good idea and is going to be something we'll want to implement for some of our legislative concept stuff and things like that. So that's
Right.
just a heads up that's going to be going on.
That's helpful. Thank you, Carrie. Are any of the things that committee is working on going to be, are they like statutory adjustments that would need to become an LC for the short session, like the bylaw changes or?
Not, well, bylaws are we'll probably look at some bylaws. I mean, we have a few things that need to be updated, but there's a few things, we'll look at and we'll put a draft forward. That won't be for July 11th. That'll likely be for September. But this in particular, so an example is commissions are allowed to charge up to 2% of the percentage of admin that a grantee gets or budget is for a grant, right? And so what that means is if I apply for an AmeriCorps program grant and I say I need $200,000, and then I say, and this much of it is our allowed percentage for admin, you know, like an indirect, kind of like an indirect kind of thing, or whatever. Commissions can also say, actually, we're also, when you get that awarded, we're going to withhold up to 1 to 2% of this. And most commissions do, and we used to as well. It's sort of all, it's like an overhead cost that commissions can use, but by statute, you have to make sure you use it on something that does benefit, like you're not, you know, the programs and stuff. We ceased charging that. With most we've ever charged is 1% anyhow, because way back in the day, even before me, that was what the research showed programs could handle, I guess, without additional burden, like negative impacts. I made a decision to stop charging that a few years back. Pandemic was happening. Various things were happening. We had a balance we weren't going to spend down just yet, and it didn't ethically feel like we should. But we knew that with the pandemic and this and that, the programs were hurting them. We didn't want to take any money from, we get all the money you need, right? It would make sense probably for us to consider reestablishing that. It's a standard practice. There's some various reasons for it, but maybe it wouldn't be applied to everybody. Something like, you know, would we do that to smaller programs, or is our ethos that smaller programs should have every dollar while they're, you know, getting established? Would it be based on monitoring results? Would it be, you know, like, and what would the percentage be? In my opinion, this is something that comes before you all. This is a big impact. It has to do with, I think, equity and accessibility to programming, because it impacts, you know, the usage of those dollars. And I feel grow is beyond an internal grant management decision that we should make. I would want to know, and I think that that's something that we need to hear the voices of local communities that are running these programs on if that is something that actually would make it difficult for them to run an AmeriCorps program. So that's an example of the types of things I'm talking about when I talk about policy, although that kind of a process that we're looking to settle could be used for any public policy things as well.
Okay. Is your intention for that example to bring that to this committee or to the membership committee?
So I want the policy to be adopted by the full commission board. So they're going to show you all the drafts, the full commission board, the drafts in July with expected feedback probably. And then, but if it's good to go, then great, get it approved in July. But if not for September, we would probably bring it forward to executive as well in between. But we want these things approved by September because they would impact our next grant cycle, which would, like, our NOFOs would start coming out in like October or November. And so if we're making these types of decisions, they would need to be reflected then.
Okay.
So that's just a heads up. You know, that's kind of what's going on with that. If you're wondering why I chose the iteration of where I sent it.
Sure. Greg or Daniel, do you have any questions? Comments? Okay, seeing none and looking at the time, Carrie, have you gone through all of your updates and everything?
Yeah, I did just want to quickly mention though, yeah, just two really small things. I'd like to hear from you all. So if you want to send me directly any ideas for our September annual meeting, any kind of training, speakers, processes that you think relate to this work, ideas for, you know, any small groups or anything, please do that. I would love to hear more about that. The other thing is that I want to circle back because I didn't really like cover this when I was giving the federal and state legislative updates. I did want to let you know that out of our 10 programs, that 4 are not continuing next year. So we're, you know, again, I mentioned wanting to find, like, did I mention this? You know, maybe some national directs like that weren't funded if we might want to ask them and whatnot, because we probably are going to have some funding to be able to fund more programs. I did want to share that MFS is not applying for another AmeriCorps grant. I just saw recently that RARE is not I haven't gotten formal notification of that. I saw it on LinkedIn. They posted that they're apparently not for next year. Ethos already had planned not to reapply. I'm unsure about PSA. I did want to let you know that CoreJ, formerly Campus Compact of Oregon, is dissolving as an organization.
Wait, say that again?
Campus Compact of Oregon is dissolving as an organization.
Oh, no.
Or CoreJ is what is their new name. So that's just a quick status update on the state of grantees.
Okay.
And then I'll just leave it all at that. A quick thing I posted in the message board around like some of the follow-up I'm doing with like state service caucus stuff. I'll do that. And then again, that's another one of the things that I want Casey to come and talk to us about is growing that. So yeah.
Okay, great.
It was a lot of just talking at you all, and I'm sorry, but we had a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and then at the top of the meeting, Carrie, you asked about the letter. I just sent the draft to you and Kelly. I don't think Daniel had any updates, and Heidi just had one small adjustment. So I sent you all what we have so far. And Craig, background for you, because I don't recall if you were at this meeting when we discussed this, but the executive committee essentially drafted a letter that's going to go out to all, ideally, if everything passes and is approved by the full commission, that is going to go out to program members and officers, just basically letting them know that we are following everything happening at the federal level and we're doing our best to look out for them and ensure that the overall mission of the commission and national service in general continues to happen in this state and in this country.
And I've given Ben Cannon a heads up about that, and kind of gotten some idea of what, he believes, is okay messaging. I mean, obviously when there's legal actions happening, or it's kind of like being careful and so forth, but so they're aware of that. So I'll follow up on that. Thank you for sending that.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought of a couple more things I need to tell you, but go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, I wanted to mention too, I am still following up on the issue around like whether or not we can do commission sign-on letters, because that's out there. Shoot, now I just forgot the other thing. Sorry, you say what you were going to say.
I was just going to move on to future meeting dates.
Oh, okay. Kelly, can you share what the next meeting date is?
Sure. The next full commission meeting date?
No, public policy.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Will be August 22nd.
Okay.
At the usual time at noon. Is that right?
Correct.
It didn't come to me. I thought maybe during that moment, I would quickly remember what the other thing was that I just was like, oh yeah, I should mention this really quick. Oh, sorry. That worked though. I wanted to, it's been a long couple of weeks, y'all. We have a lot of staff out and there's been a lot of stuff going on. So I'm excited about the 3D weekend. But yeah, that did just come to me. I did forward the Youth Mental Health Core NGA Policy Academy thing to you all for the state core cohort meeting that's happening next week related to what I talked about earlier around state cores. So you all should have gotten that. And my message about that, but basically it's an NGA Policy Academy training. State core reps coming, thought you all would be interested. They said I could invite you, but I thought it was a good primer. And I also have confirmation around attending the National Public Policy Committee meetings. And so that was a question that had come up, if I could find out about if that was fine for commission members to attend those, because it's generally like commission EDs and ask and stuff. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to forward that calendar invite to this membership as well. And that's a place where a lot of all those federal appropriations and all those various other things, those updates, as well as the updates around like state policy, legislative development, national priorities and things are being discussed, with updates from Tyler, Kyra, and Casey. And, you know, just optional for you all to attend, but you can get some of the stuff straight from them as well. So that has been cleared, and you'll get that info from me too.
Great. Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, notes for the good of the order here?
I have a general question about Youth Mental Health Corps. When are the applications for that going to open? Is there a set date on that yet?
So I think so it'll be like other applications where our grantees will post their openings or positions on the My AmeriCorps portal. Our applications, which include those that are going to run in Youth Mental Health Corps programs, are with AmeriCorps right now as part of our formula submission package. We have a few, and then we have some other ones in mind that are going to do a little bit of a later start. So they'll be more like a 9-month program year instead of a 12. So they're with AmeriCorps, and as soon as we get the go ahead that all of that money, you know, our 2.6 million has been approved from as our state allocation, then we'll send out the contracts and the grant agreements, and then those programs can start recruiting and posting and doing all of that. As I was saying earlier, like it's all kind of delayed right now because of the staffing capacity issues. But what we hear is we should hopefully expect to be notified of our awards like mid-August. If we can then like hurry up, you know, we'll hurry up and get those contracts processed, then I would expect probably, yeah, you would see those positions pop up around mid-August, and they'd probably start trying to hire by mid-September. So it's somewhere in that range, but I'm not sure, but we'll definitely keep you posted. And also, if you have ideas of organizations that want to partner or be service sites, we are going to have some additional funds, I think, because of some other, you know, programs that pulled out due to just kind of lack of confidence and you know, new funding or 25 funding. So we're still, you know, talking and possibly, you know, including, we are going to have another opportunity for organizations to apply for a grant from us. What we're going to do is we're going to set as a placeholder a percentage of our annual state allocation aside and hold on to it so that we can run like a secondary application process for programs that weren't ready to submit, for us to submit in June, the ones you all just applied for that June 13th submission. So what we can do is hold some money, do more recruitment of, you know, nonprofits, whoever it might be, and then submit the applications later this year. And then they'll just run like a 9-month program. So that's all still happening. I can ask, we'll have Malin try, if, you know, she's out on leave, but she might be back next week. If not, I think Miranda can give the update. But we'll include Youth Mental Health Corps update next week and kind of keep you all up to date on that. But yeah, that was a really long answer, sorry, but that's kind of all the context behind it is we're still recruiting, and or the ones that we hopefully will see approved soon. I think it'll be somewhere around September.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, I'm gonna close the meeting at 12:59 p.m. Give y'all a minute back. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next Friday, the 11th at 11 a.m. Have a good long weekend, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Gracias, y'all. Ciao.